Assalamu alaikum ji. Welcome everybody to the second episode of Candid with Pasha. Today we are discussing a topic which has been a very big sore point for our IT companies and IT sector at large for the most of our history, the credit and related issues. But and we have been very fortunate that we've gotten some amazing panelists today. I'll introduce all of them one by one, and then we'll get right into the conversation so we can get the maximum amount of knowledge and leverage out of these gentlemen. Uh, I'll start with introducing Syed Samar Hasnain, who's an executive director of the Development Finance Group at State Bank. He has the most difficult job in State Bank, if I can say so, because he gets to be responsible for the priority sectors or the troubled sector. So that includes microfinance, SME, and agriculture credit, and all the difficult areas where credit access is always a problem. And he is tasked of making sure that banks perform and all these troubled and priority sectors get the access to credit. We're also very fortunate to have Javed Iqbal from the head of SME banking at Bank Alfalah. So he's been a career SME banker primarily, headed at Faisal Bank, at Standard Chartered. And one of the best things I can say about him that I was doing a session with 45 bankers, and his number two was there. And I threw a challenge at the bankers that, hey, bankers, you don't know how to do risk assessment. You guys are running pound shops. I can bet nobody can raise a hand here that they've done uncollateralized lending in SME sector. So lo and behold, the only gentleman who raised a hand at that session was his number two, Syed Malik, that, hey, we have done this. So I think that says a lot about the kind of work Javed Saab and Bank Alfalah is doing and his team, and they will have something very interesting to share. We also have two stalwarts from our IT industry. Salman Saab, who needs no introduction. He's the co-founder of Techlogix, one of the most premium technology companies in Pakistan with a now, mashallah, a very international footprint. We also have relatively younger Mahir, who heads Trillium, which is one of the premium security-related, IS-related software company in Pakistan. So without much ado, I'll start by putting Samar Saab on the spot and asking a few questions from him. So we primarily be focused about the refinance scheme that the State Bank has recently announced. They not only gave a provision of financing 3 months of payroll for the SME sector, but they also went a step ahead and took a very unprecedented measure of providing a first loss guarantee of 40%. So we will to the banks in case of credit loss. So before we go into the details, Samar Saab, can you just give us an overview and share some of the numbers so far? So please unmute.
Thank you very much, Owais. And let me, start with the thanks to Pasha for bringing this very important subject, which is very close to the heart of myself and as well as the Central Bank of Pakistan. Before getting into the numbers, because I'll come to that in a minute, just to, let everyone know as to what the scheme is. Primarily, the scheme is that if you are running a business in Pakistan and you have been affected by COVID-19, so your business has got issues, you don't have the cash flows, and now you need to pay wages to your employees. So one option is that you just lay them off, and we provided the alternate option that you don't lay your employees off, and we would provide you 3 months wages. And now if your wage bill is up to 500 million rupees, for 3 months, so we'll provide the 100% wage bill as a refinance facility from the central bank, which is at an extremely subsidized rate. We provided 0% to the banks and allow them to keep a margin of maximum 3% to the end user. And if you are and this facility is for the taxpayers, but if you are non-taxpayer, then the rate goes slightly higher. It goes to 5%. And if your wage bill is more than 500 million for 3 months, then you can get up to 75% with a maximum cap of 1 billion rupees. Now, again, you see, there has been a risk sharing facility allowed by the government of Pakistan. We requested that. I'm very happy that the government reacted to that. And that's the first loss. And I'll come to that, you see, in a minute. Numbers that I can share with you, you see, and with all of the audience here, that up till 8th of the May, which was the last week, something like, you see, 1,442 companies, businesses applied for this facility. The amount which has been applied is 103 billion rupees. And this 103 billion rupees will provide a coverage protection of 1 million employees. So we are talking of 1 million families whose jobs will be protected if this entire amount is approved. Now, out of this amount, the approved, you see, now I'll share the approved number. 500 companies, you see, have been approved by the banks, and the amount involved is 47 billion. And this will be providing a protection to something like 460,000 employees. So these were some of the numbers that I wanted to share with you upfront.
Great. I noted one thing that my understanding was 4% up till now, but I think with the rate cut coming 1%, that's why you mentioned 3% today. So that's already been reflected into the policy. Is that correct?
No. Okay. Actually, we reduced that number. You see, a couple of weeks back, it was irrespective of the policy rate. So initially, you were right. At the start of the scheme, it was 4% for the taxpayers and 5% for the non-taxpayer. But in order to, you see, provide a distinction between the taxpayer and the non-taxpayer, we further reduce it to 3% for the taxpayers by keeping State Bank's margin at 0%. So we provide these free of cost to the banks and allow them to keep a maximum margin of 3%.
Okay, that's great. Can you shed a little bit of light on your undertaking of the so as part of this policy, you're also allowing a sort of guiding banks to do unsecured lending of up to 5 million. So have you seen any uptake on that side of unsecured lending as part of this?
Yeah, frankly speaking, you see, the take up on clean lending, which is up to 5 million, is very, very low. And I'll tell you as to why is it so. But you see, let me clarify one thing. What does that mean when we allow 5 million clean lending? Actually, it was the State Bank of Pakistan's own regulation. In order to protect the banking sector, we have not allowed, you see, clean lending to the banks. But for the SMEs only, we allowed it up to 5 million. So if you don't have any collateral at all, still the banks, and if the banks can take a risk on you, and the question would always arise, why would bank take a risk on you? So the answer to that is that since the government of Pakistan has allowed 40% first loss risk, which is quite generous, I tell you frankly, it's quite a generous facility because it's the first loss on portfolio basis. That means that the smaller companies, even if they go into 100% loss, on a portfolio basis, there's always a probability that the entire loss will be borne by the government of Pakistan. So this clean lending, in conjunction with this first loss and couple of other facilities, which I would definitely come in you see, in the second round of discussion, I'll be talking about collateral registry and some other, you see, corporate guarantees as well. But in conjunction with that, I believe that now this can work. The only point that I want to mention here is that there is not much take up right now because this first loss risk, you see, first loss sharing facility has just been announced, you see. It was precisely announced on 6th of May. And then it takes, you see, a couple of days to get into the place. So in the coming days, I expect to see a lot of take up in that.
Great. So I will take this now to Javed Saab because, you know, since you make the policy, he gets to implement them and roll out products. So Javed Saab, can you just give us a high level view of the kind of numbers that, you have lent to under this program already? How's the uptake's been and your perspective after that on the unsecured or clean lending for SMEs?
Thank you, Owais, and thank you, Pasha, for giving us this opportunity to come and explain the scheme and how the things are working at the commercial bank side. I'll be talking very, very specifically more on the bank Alfalah's front. On the numbers, I think generally, as mentioned, as Samar Saab has just mentioned, overall and off, uptake and the demand is, we have seen a very reasonable numbers, I should say. Roughly at Bank Alfalah, the total request received is about 8.5, 9 billion rupees. Out of that, we have approved about 50% of all these requests. And then we are in the process of documentation and the disbursement phase. And I think thanks to, again, the regulator, that while there were initial teething problems, so they have also allowed us to reimburse all those companies who have paid, because since there was a lag and the salaries for the month of April had to be paid, so that reimbursement part has also been allowed to make it further easy for the companies and also for the banks. And overall, the way scheme is structured, that we have to open up accounts of the people who are not already banking with us or with any bank. So now all those restrictions has been eased out. A very smooth account opening operation has been allowed specifically for the salary accounts, whereby an employer can simply give us an undertaking and a certification, and through Nadra viruses and all that, a brief account can be opened. So I think all in all, a lot of effort has been put in by the central bank and everything, and a lot of relaxations have been given from the regular facilities to accommodate this particular facility where a lot of jobs are at stake and a lot of families' livelihood was at stake, and that has been very well taken care of. So you're coming back specifically on the unsecured facilities. I think as this all semi-lockdown situation, the most lockdown situation, banks also working with the thin capacity, and all these, like, this is not the only scheme which is going on. There are a lot of other schemes which has been offered by the central bank to protect the companies, their restructuring stuff. So a lot is happening there. So with all this thin structure, I think the bankers also very busy in putting all these things in place and supporting the businesses and stuff. So at this point in time, I think the most of the efforts are going on with your existing customers, because they are the priority people where you need to serve and have them sort of even. So, and at the same time, all those people who are new to the bank, they are also being they're being serviced. So, but being I mean, it's a first time underwriting to these people, so you will be asking a lot more questions, a lot more information. Though there are certain strict timelines defined in the scheme that we have to deliver all these within reasonable times, and those times are again defined and being monitored everywhere internally at the organization level, at a central level as well. And I should say that, yes, I agree that at this point in time, offtake is very slow, especially on the clean lending loans, because a lot of like extra due diligence is required on all those names, and so true for the new company which has come first time to the bank. But I would request through this forum to all these companies that please, I mean, this is not something a very free loan. Bank has its own credit exposure at stake, and the bank would be taken care while the liquidity is provided, subsidized liquidity is provided by the central bank, but the credit exposures are of the banks alone. So with recently announced credit guarantee scheme and everything, that will help us a lot. But more so, since it's a 2.5 years facility from the disbursement date, people have to come and demonstrate the cash flows. I mean, so we would be more happy to see a very serious and stream of cash flows for next 2 to 3 years. So unfortunately, the very smaller companies on the supply side also have that challenge, that how to put up their case. So as Bank Alfalah, since we also have a very active non-financial advisory services, so we are conducting various webinars and stuff like that, and propagating all this information and making people bankable as to what they should come and tell the banks to prepare their case or to put up their case for a credit-worthy decision for the bank. And I think going forward with all this scheme recently announced with the credit guarantee and everything, I do see an uptake in this scheme going forward.
So in a way, we can safely say that one good thing, I mean, let's not say anything good about Corona, but we have to look at silver lining, right? We have to be optimistic. So a lot more companies will get exposure to formal credit. I think this is going to be one of the biggest benefits for companies at large, especially SMEs that have been deprived. And so we definitely see that as a positive sign. And as you do more and more lending to this sector, I think it'll be easier over time. So before we go and ask Salman and Mahir about their experience with raising thing, I want to get an idea about, so you're talking about almost like 4.5 billion rupees worth of disbursements that may not have been disbursement, but at least credit approvals that you have done. So would you be able to share what percentage of that comes from the IT sector?
Owais, I think overall in a portfolio, let's say that we manage at Bank Alfalah for the SMEs, we have about roughly an outstanding roughly about 40 odd billion. But I think maybe IT companies are very self-sufficient. The total facilities availed so from Bank Alfalah are not more than 500 million rupees. And now under the current scheme also, we have roughly about 9-10 companies which have applied for this salary and wages scheme, where the cases are being processed. I think 1 or 2 have already been approved. And so in terms of percentages, this is not very large at this point in time.
All right, so we'll circle back and come. Let's hear from Salman. Salman, so I believe you guys have applied and obtained financing under the scheme. So can you just walk us through your experience and also tell us that if there was a credit relationship already in place for you with the bank you went to?
Sure. So we have applied. We've not yet received approval. We are informed that we are going to receive approval shortly. Let me just highlight a couple of things that I think are important in this context, because there's some things that are peculiar about the IT industry which need to be taken into account in any such program. So, the two peculiarities that make this very relevant here are, first of all, most IT companies have very limited or zero hard collateral. So they don't have any hard assets, etc. So that's one big issue. The second issue is most IT companies, for example, Techlogix, 75% of our cost base is payroll. So actually, IT companies are seriously affected in this situation because really for us, the biggest cost, 3/4 of our cost is payroll. Okay. So you would think that really we are ground zero for these loans. We ought to be ground zero for these loans. Now, let me walk you through our example, and I'll tell you kind of, what worked, what didn't work, what question did we have to answer, and etc. And I think that'll highlight some issues over here. So first of all, the bank that we talked to, we have a prior credit relationship with them. So we have ERF Part 2, that's Export Refinance Part 2, because we happen to own some land, and that's a hard collateral, and we were able to get some financing against that. Okay, so there is a financial relationship with the bank. Also, this same bank is the bank that has been processing our payroll for all of our employees. All our employees have their accounts over there. All our payroll is processed for the last 15+ years. So, they've known us for a long time. Okay. Now, when we applied for this facility, right? So I'll just run through for the maybe for the interest of everybody else that's on the call. Kya cheezein mangi humse? So what are the things that you need to be prepared to have ready, because I assume most banks will ask the same kind of thing. Okay. So एक तो there's an application, चलो वो अपनी जगह पे एक basic bank borrower sheet होती है, वो आपको भरनी पड़ती है. You need to have audited accounts. Most people will not have 2019 audited accounts. For example, हमारे अभी तक audit accounts ready नहीं है. So 2019 के हमने management accounts दिए, उससे पहले पिछले 3 साल के audited accounts दिए. ठीक है. उसके अलावा we gave them payroll data on a letterhead. ठीक है. Now, because our payroll is actually done at the same bank, it was easy for them to validate because they could just cross-check. It was very simple. Okay. Against that, they were able to match the amounts transferred, because obviously when we pay people, we transfer money to pay for them, so they were able to match that. There were a few questions about a provident fund and EOBI. Is it covered? Is it not covered? Back and forth. Ultimately, it was agreed. Okay, this is covered. Chala, theek hai. Okay. It was also agreed that bonus is not covered and no bonus payments will be made, which just makes sense. And that's not covered. That also makes sense. Okay. When they looked at the management accounts over the last 12 months, 2019, they looked at the payroll numbers over there. They looked at the numbers we gave them for April or March or April. They said, "इसमें फर्क है, फर्क क्यों है?" हमने कहा फर्क इसलिए क्योंकि हमारी कंपनी ग्रो कर गई है, we have more people, आपको तो खुश होना चाहिए कि अच्छी बात है, हम बढ़ गए, कम नहीं हुआ बल्कि बढ़ गए। अच्छा हाँ ये बात तो ठीक है, चलें ठीक है, ओके बढ़ गया। हमने कहा ये देखें ये चेंज है, because again that's another thing peculiar about IT companies के payroll सारा वक्त बदलता रहता है, because there's compared to other industries there's more turnover, so month to month there's people come and go. Okay. Then what the bank said was that okay हम इस तरह करेंगे कि हम जब approve कर देंगे तो हम employees को direct credit कर देंगे क्योंकि उनके accounts हमारे पास ही हैं, और जो FPR को आपने amount pay करना है withholding वाला वो हम Techlogix pay करते हैं. We said absolutely no problem. All our employees have accounts. Absolutely not an issue. Okay. So this was kind of the easy part. Now let's get to the more interesting part, which is now how to collateralize. Okay. Now okay, so just to give you some numbers, so हमारा 3-month का payroll is about 120 million rupees. Okay. And that was significantly beyond whatever hard assets we had. So, obviously that was not going to cover it. So, okay, so how to collateralize? So they said, अच्छा बताएं कि आपके क्या, maybe we can do some kind of bill discounting. आपकी invoices के against हम, उससे कुछ हम करते हैं, उनके against charge कर लेते हैं. अच्छा, वो एक और peculiarity है जावेद साहब IT companies की, कि हमारी invoices बहुत सारी होती हैं और बदलती रहती हैं, आती और जाती हैं, ठीक है. उसकी वजह ये है कि एक भी प्रोजेक्ट पे आपकी 5-5, 6-6 इनवॉइसेस होती हैं, 10 इनवॉइसेस होती हैं, तो वो शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन इनवॉइसेस होती हैं, they come and go. ठीक है. So if you say okay, what are the current invoices, in other words invoices that you've raised and have been accepted by the counterparty, which is the standard model of supply chain financing, कि हम उनको डिस्काउंट करेंगे आपके लिए, वो एक इतना मूविंग टारगेट है कि वो IT इंडस्ट्री के लिए अप्लाई करता ही नहीं है. It's very difficult because it's just too much turnover going on. ठीक है. हमारी छोटी बहुत इनवॉइसेस होती हैं compared to maybe some other industry which has a few large invoices जिनको आप reasonably कर सकते हैं, discount कर सकते हैं. So what we shared with the bank was, so we have two sets of businesses. One is a business that we do in Pakistan, and then there's our export business. मैं अभी export business को set aside कर देता हूँ क्योंकि उसकी कुछ और peculiarities हैं. I'll circle back to those. अभी सिर्फ पाकिस्तान बिजनेस की बात करते हैं, बिकॉज वो इन दैट सेंस जो जावेद साहब ने एक सवाल पूछा वो आसान हो जाता है, बिकॉज वो कस्टमर्स पाकिस्तानी हैं, उनको इवेल्युएट करना आसान है. If I have some random company in the US that is my customer, it's very difficult for a bank, Alfalah, or any bank in Pakistan to evaluate the credit worthiness of that customer. Will they pay us or not? It's very difficult. Even, what are the bona fides of that company? They don't know. How will you establish कि वो क्या company है, कितनी बड़ी है? कर सकते हैं, but it's a difficult task. पाकिस्तानी कस्टमर्स के लिए आसान है. अच्छा, हमारे केस में काम और भी आसान था. So when we shared this data with them, we had हमारे जो इस वक्त contracts outstanding, यानी कि projects that we're working on in Pakistan, उनकी total contract value was 1.2 billion rupees. ठीक है. जिसके अंदर से जो remaining amount of receivable था, that was about 508 million rupees. तकरीबन आप समझ लगे आधा हम ऑलरेडी रिसीव कर चुके हैं, आधा रहता है, which is what you would expect at any moment in time out of all the contracts. You would mathematically expect कि आधा काम आप कर चुके हैं और आधा काम रहता है, because it's just a random point in time. ठीक है. So that was what our data was. ठीक है. So we had a receivable of about 508 million. उसके against हम 120 million की लोन थी, तो it seemed to match up. अच्छा, हमारे केस में एक और इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट ये है कि ये जो 1.2 बिलियन का रिसीवेबल है, इसमें से 950 मिलियन का रिसीवेबल इज फ्रॉम बैंक्स इन पाकिस्तान. ठीक है, जिसमें तकरीबन सारे बैंक ही हैं. अच्छा, अब मैं इसको जरा ऑब्जेक्टिवली देखूं तो मैं कहूंगा कि यार इससे ज्यादा क्या क्रेडिबल पार्टी काउंटर पार्टी हो सकती है कि आपको ये भी एक तसल्ली है कि यार इधर तो कैश फ्लो का भी मसला नहीं है, आपके काउंटर पार्टी के पास कैश फ्लो का भी मसला नहीं है, बैंक के सारे वो तो पैसे दे देंगे आपको. ठीक है. Despite all, so really, I think that we had, in the IT industry, we had pretty much as strong a case as you could make to give a loan based on your invoices. Okay? But still, there's a considerable amount of back and forth. ये explanation कि जी आप सिर्फ invoices को discount नहीं कर सकते. You have to look at the entire contract. You have to look at the contract size. कितना काम हो चुका है वो भी एक indicator है, because अगर तकरीबन आपने आधा काम कर लिया है जिसके आपको पैसे मिल गए, that indicates कि आप कुछ काम कर भी रहे हैं जिसके लिए किसी ने आपको पैसे दिए. ठीक है. तो ये सारी एक प्रोसेस चलती रही, and basically we applied on April 28th. May 8th को our application was judged complete, because you know there was back and forth documentation. ये जो मैं आपको अब सारी चीजें बता रहा हूँ ये April 28th को clear नहीं थी कि आपने ये सारी चीजें देनी है. May 8th को उन्होंने कहा कि ये अब complete है, अब हम अपनी वो approval process के अंदर डाल रहे हैं. हमारी अंडरस्टैंडिंग ये है कि at this point we are at the last stage of the approval cycle. You know वो जो 5-6-7 steps होते हैं, हम आखिरी stage पे. We understand that we should get approval next week. ठीक है. So that's sort of our story. Now we can separately talk about ERF वगैरह, but you know I think enough said. आप mute हैं, Owais.
Owais, please.
No, sorry, I was throwing it towards you, because since you are on the other side, I thought it would be an interesting thing to hear your perspective and, you know, share some notes, so maybe it can help companies in the future.
Thank you, Salman. I think that was a coffee detailed briefing, Zaidi. And just to tell you that, number one, irrespective that whether a company is in Pakistan or abroad, it doesn't take a longer time to find out about any company, even in US or wherever it is. So that's pretty easy. And obviously a lot of IT companies are working with the foreign companies. So I would encourage people that yes, do share all those things, and we will find about the creditworthiness and of all those companies. So in obviously particular your case, you rightly said it is the most easiest of all the cases, or there will be many such cases, but specifically speaking, invoice discounting is a very short-term financing mode. So rather than going into, because those invoices, whatever, even if you present, these invoices will get paid probably in next 30, 60 or 90 odd days. So the credit risk, which I am assuming, and which the payments is about to start from about 6 months or rather 8 months from now, so none of these invoices will exist. So that's not a right mode to even adopt to, but the more relevant one is to look at your contracts. So all those contracts which you mentioned for 2, 3, 4x number of years, and the residue value of those contracts is the right approach to ascertain the credit, and obviously look at that yes, you have done some or the major part of that, and it is most likely that you are going to perform on those contracts, whether it's with the local companies in Pakistan or with the foreign companies. And then one can look at those receivables which are going to come forward in whatever the X amount that is, and then extend the credit lines to companies like yours.
अच्छा वैसे if you allow me, मैं एक और point raise करना चाहता हूँ इस पे, ठीक है? वो ये है, actually थोड़ा सा इसका backdrop ये है कि about 3 months ago, the Governor SBP did a meeting with a bunch of IT exporters here in Lahore. I'm sure कराची में भी की होगी. लाहौर में मीटिंग हुई थी जिसकी एक आउटकम ये था कि a 4-person committee was formed to suggest some policy ideas to SBP. तो उसमें सिस्टम से एजाज साहब थे, I was there, नेटसॉल से बू अली साहब थे और अली सैयद थे from 7 Valves. अच्छा हमने वो उनको डॉक्यूमेंट भी भेज दिया 2-1 महीने पहले, पर इनफैक्ट पिछले हफ्ते ही एक और कॉल भी हुई थी, फॉलो अप कॉल हुई थी, जिसमें SPP की तरफ से काफी लोग, अर्शद भट्टी साहब थे, there were a bunch of other people over there in that call. It was a productive call. अच्छा उसमें उसमें भी यही जिक्र था कि जी वो एक्सपोर्ट के हवाले से था, उसमें भी ये जिक्र था कि जी एक्सपोर्टर्स को कोलैटरल नहीं होता, हम किस तरह करें वगैरह वगैरह. अच्छा एक चीज में इसमें एक और पिक्यूलियरिटी आ जाती है, वो ये है जावेद साहब कि in many cases, for example, if you look at Techlogix, all of our Techlogix Pakistan, which is our Pakistani entity, इसके जो customers हैं ना in Dubai and in the US, which are the 2 main markets, Middle East and the US, which are the 2 main markets, our customers are Techlogix Inc. and Techlogix FZ LLC, our sister companies. क्योंकि असल में होता है कि आगे से वो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करते हैं, Techlogix Inc. contracts in the US and Techlogix FZ contracts in Dubai, in UAE for the entire Middle East, and then they subcontract to us. अच्छा ये भी एक छोटी सी पिक्यूलियरिटी है जो अगेन समटाइम्स बैंक कहते हैं ये तो रिलेटेड पार्टी है, तो ये तो मैं इसकी किस तरह वो, सो वो भी समझाना पड़ा था कि जी यू हैव टू पियर्स थ्रू दैट वेल एंड लुक एट द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जो आगे उन्होंने साइन किया, ठीक है। आप देखें बैंक अल्फलाह हैज अ डिजर्व्ड रेपुटेशन फॉर बीइंग very aggressive and forward thinking in the SME space, but ये मैं इस फोरम पे ये जरूर कहूंगा कि जिस तरह आपकी एक willingness है, for example, to look through that veil and for example try and assess credit worthiness of even potentially US customers, जो I agree with you कि आजकल को बड़ी मुश्किल काम नहीं है, आप उनके वेबसाइट पे जाके वेबसाइट से आपको कोई ना कोई अंदाजा हो जाता है, but I fear कि many other financial institutions in Pakistan may not be as ready to do that extra work that is entailed. देखिए कोई बात है उसमें एक्स्ट्रा काम करना है, किसी और इंडस्ट्री में शायद को बहुत आसान काम हो तो कहें तो सिंपल सा काम है, तो ये मे बी कुछ यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी एक पॉलिसी गाइडेंस भी अगर कोई आ जाए that might be helpful, or some working guidance maybe from the forum of Institute of Bankers or something कि यार ये इस इंडस्ट्री की कुछ peculiarities हैं, तो ये एक बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस है जिस तरह जो sounds like you have already adopted, but I think that might be useful. ठीक है।
Owais, before you could turn to Mahir, can I say, you see, just something in a minute? Because that's very relevant to what Salman has mentioned. Owais?
Sorry. Yeah, please go ahead. I was coming to you. I think it's time
Okay.
that you had something. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you see, when I was hearing Salman, I was becoming unnerved. You see, the reason is that we are talking of a company. Now, there are a couple of, peculiarities that I would like to mention from Salman's company's point of view. There are a couple of things. For example, he's an exporter. An exporter is the one who has a relationship with the bank, you see. And secondly, he has an old relationship with the bank. Thirdly, he have had receivables, which were almost double of what he applied for that. And that's a good company as well. So now having everything in place, and and then on the top of that, I think there's a risk guarantee. It came on 6th of May. I don't know whether that was factored in this particular transaction or not. But having everything in place, if a company like Salman's company is facing that problems in terms of the timelines and in terms of back and forth, movement, then that makes me unnerved, you see. So that's a point of concern, and I'll come to that in a minute, you see.
अच्छा, sorry, मैं एक समर साहब इस पे देखें, we like our bankers, वो बड़े अच्छे लोग हैं, मैं उनकी बुराई नहीं कर रहा यहाँ पे मगर but the reason why I went into this much detail about Techlogix is precisely to make this point. We were a slam dunk case. We are a simple case. I mean, it really can't get simpler than this in the IT industry. ठीक है? तो really मैं यही point second करना चाह रहा था कि हमारे केस में भी अगर कुछ दिक्कतें हो रही हैं, चले ठीक है, कुछ understandable होता है, तो अगर ये सब कुछ ना होता तो उनको तो वो नहीं approve होंगे. I mean, as things stand, most banks will not approve. This is my feeling.
So yeah, I think it's amazing because thank you, Salman, for being so frank and sharing everything in detail, because I think the feedback loop will help the regulator in fine-tuning the policy as well. And I can see the wheels turning in Samar Saab's head, and I'm sure there will be another little note coming out of State Bank very shortly on this. So I think we've heard, because Salman is like a poster child for our industry, right? This is how you do it when you make it big. So let's hear Mahir's experience a little bit, that the hoops he had to jump through, and how's the experience so far?
Okay. So thank you for the opportunity. First of all, our case is actually very similar to Salman Saab's. Perhaps the scale is not as big, but we are exactly in the same scenario as his company. And I think a lot of IT companies or technology companies are in a similar space or situation. Our OPEX, or our operating cost, is also 75% is payroll. We also do not accumulate any assets except for IP. And even IP is not a very big part of our company, unless we're a product company, which is a smaller part of the business. We do also have the same situation in terms of receivables. We have a big we have a very high frequency of invoices. and the amount of receivables that we have versus the requirement that we wanted, the facility we wanted to avail was also actually perhaps we had receivables a bit more than 50%. However, when we tried to approach the bank for this particular facility, we weren't very welcomed. I mean, there were certain requirements. First was the collateral requirement. When we told them that this requirement is not there as per the policy, they wanted a third-party guarantee. And that guarantee, essentially what they wanted was that someone needs to guarantee that in case we default, they are going to cover for us. And I don't think I mean, we did not want to go to anyone for such a guarantee. So what we did was we said, okay, we, you know, given our history, I mean, we've been banking with our bank for about 15 years as well. They know us completely thoroughly. All our payroll goes through them. Everything goes through them. So they know us. And I think that's why we're in the same building as well. They know our staff. We know everyone in the branch. You know, they're very approachable. So perhaps we got leverage because of that position. A lot of companies that I know of, they don't have the same situation or same relationship with their bank. And most banks are not known to maintain that kind of corporate relationship with smaller entities. So we just simply decided, based on our past experience of financing options that are available to an IT company, not to even go and pursue the 20 million financing, because the signs were very clear that, you know, the bank was asking for certain things which were not really very feasible. So we just said, okay, let's go for the 5 million amount. I mean, that's going to cover like 1 month, barely 1 month of our payroll. Let's just try that out. And we only did this because we have relationship with our bank, and you know, we do have, you know, so we have some leverage. So we went for that option. So they asked for the typical set of documents. We had our accounts. They asked for, you know, unaudited accounts till December as well. They wanted to see our cash flows and obviously everything else that's part of the application. We did that. We filed that, I think, somewhere around first week of May. And we've been told that our case should be approved in the next couple of weeks, and we should expect disbursement post-Eid holidays. So that's where we stand with the 5 million. So this went through very, I guess we did not have to jump through any hoops. My finance team basically handled all the paperwork. All I had to do was sign. So it was pretty straightforward, but again, it's not done until it's done, right? So we don't have official approval as yet. We don't have a disbursement, but we just chose the easier way out, just, I guess, being a bit pessimistic and saying, you know, we won't get that 20 million because the demands that were coming in were not very feasible. And, you know, we don't have that collateral to give to the banks.
My quick question, so this is clean, right? So there's no collateral for this?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a very positive thing, that at least they are
It is,
considered
of course.
for the clean lending.
Yes, of course. Of course.
So I have a couple of questions, and I think we'll circle back to Samar Saab and Javed Saab if they want to, you know, probe you a little bit more on this. But my question is that, so you feel that did the bank says they had a clean cut offering, or did you leverage your relationship to get the clean lending facility for yourself? Was that a standard offering, or it was a special thing for you?
When you have relationship, you can't really tell the difference. Is it preferential treatment or standard treatment? Because you're always getting that treatment. I think people in the audience might be able to answer that. I mean, we've been looking at our group, right? And people generally, companies are very upset that their banks are not entertaining them. So I think the general consensus is this, but of course my experience is different, and I have this relationship with the bank, and perhaps that's why my experience is different. I'm guessing. I can't really tell if this is standard or you know, out of the ordinary.
Thank you, Mahir. So Samar Saab, I have a question for you. So I'm sure you will have a few comments and questions, but so since you are looking at SME as a whole, that's part of your portfolio. So are you looking at the subsectors, or are you just looking at agriculture, manufacturing, and services, or are you looking at each particular sector like IT, or would you have visibility in numbers that, so I've approved 30 billion, out of that X is going towards this particular sector and that particular sector. So can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think well, that's a very valid question, and I think that would be very interesting. Answer to that question would be very interesting for the audience as well. So, like, if I'm actually, we are looking at different sectors for this particular wages scheme. When I try to extract the data as to how many IT companies have actually applied, how much is the amount covered and amount applied, and how many employees are there. So I got, a number of something like 27 IT companies have applied. So out of these 14, 42, 27 are the IT companies. And you can always correlate with the fact that out of 14, 42 companies which have applied, 26 companies, 26% companies are actually SMEs. So out of those 26% companies, only 27 companies are IT companies. And the amount that has been applied for, against these 27 companies, IT companies, is something like 1.5 billion rupees. And that covers, something like 10,500 employees. I don't have the data of, disaggregated data of how much of these have already been sectioned. I know the total numbers, but not against these IT companies. So these were, some of the numbers that I wanted to share with you and with the audience. Now, coming back to what Mahir, has said, again, the wheels that you were referring to started moving. I was just wondering that why did not, the bank took an exposure for the bigger amount? Why did he has to go for 5 million, which is the clean lending? And that's very important. So my, understanding is probably it must have happened after this 40% risk coverage scheme is in place. Now, since he have had a relationship of 15 years, so that's the key, the key factor. And the second one is this risk sharing facility. Because when we say that 40% risk is being shared by the government of Pakistan, this is on portfolio basis. One must remember, for a bank, Javed would endorse me, for a bank, it means that even some of the smaller companies, if there's 100% loss, still on the portfolio basis, that would be covered by the bank guarantee. So I was just wondering why the bank did not entertain, requests for the higher amount when they have had a relationship of more than 15 or 16 years, and why did they move for the clean lending? I don't have an answer to that, except for the fact that probably this is the risk sharing facility in place.
All right, so one more question, Samar Sahab, on this. So, because Javed Sahab is a traditional banker, so so as per the policy, you've allowed Islamic banks to come in. Have they been able to figure out, because I know there's a cumbersome Sharia approval process in there, that they can actually go and extend these kind of loans? And are you seeing numbers coming from the Islamic side?
I think that's a very valid question, because I believe that a lot of the audience companies here and the individual would be interested in Sharia compliant solutions because of the interest factors, because that is something that we see within the countries, in our country as well. Yes, all of the Islamic banks now, they have got the Sharia solutions available. State Bank of Pakistan's Sharia board has already approved the product, and now it's up to the banks. Their Sharia board has also approved that. Islamic banks have started doing transaction under this wages scheme. And I'll just explain you one point, which actually puts companies at advantage if they go for the Sharia compliant solution, compared to the conventional solution. I don't know whether I should be saying that, because I'm looking after both portfolio, conventional as well as the Sharia one. But I just want to highlight that for the purpose of the clarification to the audience. In Sharia compliant version, the normal typical mode under which the bank extend financing is diminishing musharaka, where and when I'm talking of the hardware part of IT companies, if they want to procure that hardware part, then this is provided under Sharia diminishing musharaka base. Under diminishing musharaka base, the biggest facility is that unlike conventional, where if you default, then you're penalized. In case of the Sharia compliant version, you see, if you default and if it is not, you see, willful default, then you're not penalized for that. Even if it is a sort of a willful default, then the amount goes as a charity. So the company would get some benefit in Ramzan, you see, even if they go for the default. The second point, which is more important, is that under Musharaka mode, which is the Sharia compliant mode, since some of the ownership is taken by the Islamic Bank by virtue of this instrument, so if there is a major repair in the equipment, hardware equipment, then the responsibility is also of the bank on the pro rata basis in which they and the companies are sharing this particular instrument. So that is an advantage of having a Sharia compliant solution under this. And we see that the banks are doing that. I see Mizan Bank's numbers coming on back in Islamic as well.
Okay. So interestingly, so Islamic has started picking up, because definitely it is a big major consideration for a lot of people, they bank with it. So since you are at the policy level, I'll ask one more question, that because when you design it, I'm sure there are reference models you looked at. So if we were to pick one reference model from, let's say, a developing country in the neighborhood and one like a more advanced country like UK or Sweden or something, so what kind of models did you look at when you were designing this particular product for the Pakistani market, and what were some of the pros and cons you looked at, and what features you picked out of those?
Actually, Owais, it was not one country you see in the developing countries or you see developed nations. Actually, we looked at almost all jurisdiction, and actually some of the things were happening parallel. On one end, State Bank of Pakistan, you see, as a regulator, allowed all the loans you see to be deferred for 1 year. You know that you see particular facility which has been allowed across the board, you see, irrespective of the wages, something like that. That has nothing to do with the refinance facility. We also allowed the waiver, you see, not the waiver, but we also allowed the deferment of the markup in the form of the rescheduling. So actually, we studied all of the jurisdiction, and the central banks were taking steps in you see, sort of providing refinance facilities, sort of providing a relaxation on the regulatory side. The interesting part, and that is something that we have witnessed from you see, a lot of the literature as well, from the World Bank side, IMF side, that Pakistan moved very, very quickly, you see, in some of these steps, where some of the nations are yet, you see, deciding, and there's some of the neighboring nations as well, which are yet deciding to take actions. Pakistan has already taken an action, and not only taken an action, actually, since from the launch of this wages scheme, for example, we made 3 amendments in this scheme after a week and then week. And we were doing that on the basis of the feedback that we were receiving. For example, the last one that we did for the bigger one, you see, allowing up to 1 billion. That's a very recent one. And just one more I would like to highlight here, which has a relevance here, because most of the IT company, they can take a benefit of that. I'm sure that there is an issue of awareness, is the corporate guarantees of the bigger entities. Because I understand, and I have had that discussion with some of the IT companies directly, you see, I know that since the IT companies basically provide solutions, the software companies, they provide domestic solution to some of the entities. For example, some companies are providing solution to the central bank as well. So if the company to whom they're providing solution, if they can provide a sort of a corporate guarantee, which is not the bank guarantee, that they know this company for such long period, they have been interacting with us, and these are some of the amounts that they have been receiving from us, then we can provide you a corporate guarantee to a bank. Then for the first time in the history of the central bank, we never did that in our history earlier. We allowed corporate guarantee as an acceptable collateral for the banks. We allowed that in our regulation. So that's the biggest benefit. So now what you can do is that you see an IT company, what they can do is that they can take benefit of first loss guarantee combined with the corporate guarantees, and and at the same time, they can also try to take benefit from the clean lending. So that's the whole suite of that.
Just a follow-up question on the corporate guarantee. So does that create any kind of recourse on the corporate, or is just an assurance?
You see, basically, it is exactly like someone provides a loan to an entity and an individual gives a personal guarantee.
So now, there is recourse.
There is a recourse, you see. But you see, we are talking of, because Mahir's example, or you see Salman example, we are talking of the companies which have the relationship with their, you see, to whom they're providing solutions for years and years. So the companies could take that risk, you see, because they know that. And ultimately, it's their own, you see, in their own benefit, because it provides them uninterrupted supply of, you see, the services, or in case of the manufacturing concern of the equipments.
Salman, please go ahead. Yeah.
I'll make 2 points. Ek to ye ke, first of all, I'd like to really appreciate the policy response from SBP. I think they have been the most proactive government entity across the board. If anybody's done anything for COVID-19, I think SBP has been at the forefront of moving very fast and reacting very quickly. So absolutely full marks to you. बहुत जबरदस्त काम किया आप लोगों ने. You know, and really I say this without any fear of contradiction. I think the second point I'll make is, sir, ये जो corporate guarantee na, this is not going to work. Because if there's recourse, I can tell you, there are banks that I've been working with for 15 years. They cannot issue me a corporate guarantee without getting it approved by the board of directors, because how can they give me a, you know, how can they allow recourse on them? And it's just, you know, fine, they might like us as a vendor, badi achhi baat hai, but actually getting this approved at that high level, it's a very, very tall ask. So I think, you know, it may happen like in 1 in 100 cases, but generally speaking, very, very unlikely. Personally, you know, if I, for example, if I had a vendor and the vendor came to me and said, you know, give me a corporate guarantee and there'll be recourse on you, I probably won't do it, because I just say, you know, why should I take the risk on you? मुझे क्या पता आपकी बिजनेस में क्या होगा. तो सर ये जो है ना, देखिए वो रिलेशनशिप, अब वो क्या मे बी गारंटी, जहां गारंटी आ गई बड़ा मुश्किल काम हो गया. ठीक है, गारंटी तो बड़ी मुश्किल काम है, अनलेस कि आप इसको किसी इंश्योरेंस प्रोडक्ट के साथ टाई करें, ताकि you know, जिसमें हम for example, okay, maybe there's a corporate guarantee which they're issuing, and we issue them a back-to-back insurance guarantee for which we pay the premium to an insurance company. Now that, you know, maybe that might work, because more 2-3% पे हम insurance guarantee दिलवा दें उनको, corporate को insurance guarantee दिलवा दें, but जिस तरह आप बता रहे हैं ये बड़ा मुश्किल काम है.
So just another thing. So I'm getting a lot of questions from our members, and I think quite a few are on the show. So one of the things is, again, to be really honest, Salman's company and Mahir's company are really like the large, rock solid, stable companies that have been around for at least 15, 20 years, right? You've been around for more than 20, Salman, right? So so I think the big challenge that we see, and maybe you want, you know, use your good offices, and you know, Javed Saab will definitely have some input, because he already has 35% market share in lending to the IT SMEs, right? Based on the numbers shared by him and you. So yeah, so the big challenge is, and is from the small and medium-sized companies, because they are, you know, Trillium and Techlogix, that they're still at the upper spectrum. So the big challenge comes from small companies and medium companies, and it's not that they don't have a stable cash flow. It's primarily coming from the fact that they don't have any collateral, right? Maybe a few directors have a cars, maybe somebody has an apartment they live in, or a house they live in, but there are really no assets the business has that they can use to collateralize. So maybe a takeaway or a request will be for, because you are monitoring all the subsectors within the service industry, maybe a specialized mechanism to evaluate IT companies would probably be a good idea from our side. That'll be probably a recommendation, because once you start, you know, like agriculture, you have livestock, you have farm, you have, you know, these things. So maybe IT, you can have services companies, product companies, different categories you can work out. The hardware bits are easy to do because the companies that are doing hardware, they have smaller margins, they have large volumes, and they usually have enough assets to buy because it's primarily a trading business. It's not really a technology business, mostly. But the real hardcore companies have a challenge. So I think Pasha has a lot of capability. We can equip the staff at banks, do seminars, trade notes, create standards for reporting, at least, whatever we can do for the betterment industry. But what we expect is some kind of moral suasion and a hard push. That's the tools you have. So that's some food for thought that we want you to think about and give your input on. Javed sir, do you want to comment on that, on your thought process on how you can assess the IT industry or try to increase the percentage?
Yeah, I think I'll quickly respond to Salman's big no on a corporate guarantee thingy. Look, I mean, there are only two things, Salman. Whatever, if I am a bank and if I want a reliable vendor and the particular service, let's say, even provided by IT company A, and so I actually want that IT company to be, I mean, working 24/7 and providing me that service. Otherwise, we won't be able to talk on these platforms and stuff like that. We won't be able to service the bank. And these corporate guarantees is already a norm in the market. If you ask me, I run about 7-8 supply chain programs today, which are primarily unsecured programs, but the parent companies have given me some kind of, their skin is in the game through that corporate guarantee. The reason why it is there, because let's say if a big, take a company, FMCG or something, if I'm supporting their dealers, their small network places with some liquidity, so rather than extending their credit to sell their products, so bank has come into that role and we have sort of, received, minimized their market credit in the market. So they're willing to provide it. It's not something which is not happening, but an IT company which doesn't have any other asset and it's only Salman Saab ki ek apni gaadi hai, uske baad kuch nahi hai. So then for a bank to take 2.5 or 3 years view on your company, I need either some sort of contracts which you have with the companies whereby I will be able to assess that yes, आपकी company ये काम करेगी and अगले 2-2.5 साल के बाद जब whenever these payments will become due, so you will be able to pay, or somebody or that company just for whom today you have this workforce to provide services for, that company will be chipping in whatever form. So I think this is not something very hard and fast that yes, if you because थोड़ी देर पहले हम एक और बात कर रहे थे, समर साहब ने कहा कि the companies if they go into the Islamic mode of financing, so default and everything. So look, we are here talking for the good companies, and we know that once this credit process goes and everything is assessed, so the companies which have a solid market standing will get these facilities. I mean, if a company has been recently formed, not performing or not working with any substantial name in the local or international market, and whereby I also don't see that whether that company will be in the market for the next 6 to 12 months, it's very difficult to extend any credit line for 2.5-3 years sitting today. So those companies just will definitely have the challenge, and in such a companies, yes, for smaller loans, this credit guarantee scheme will definitely play a bigger role. But I would request through this forum to the audience who's also listening that please do not think that corporate guarantees is a big no. Something has to, you also need to give some comfort to the bank who is taking a credit risk on this company, and so vendors do come in play on that. So
yeah, sir, if I may, I'll make 2 comments. बिल्कुल I'm aware कि कुछ सप्लाई चेन्स के अंदर वो कुछ peculiarities इस तरह होती है. फॉर एग्जांपल एक फर्टिलाइजर कंपनी का जो डीलर नेटवर्क है वो उसके लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, ठीक है. तो उनको वो कॉर्पोरेट गारंटी एक्सटेंड करना एक उनकी एक अलग किस्म की रिलेशनशिप होती है. सो आई टेक योर पॉइंट. द अदर पॉइंट आई विल मेक इज टू अवैस's पॉइंट कि देखें शायद टेक्लॉजिक्स तो कॉर्पोरेट गारंटी दिलवा भी दे, मगर एक्चुअली मसला हमारा नहीं है। जिस तरह अवैस कह रहे थे, मसला एक्चुअली बहुत सारी छोटी कंपनीज का है जिनको ये मसला एड्रेस हो ही नहीं रहा, और उनको नहीं मिलेगी कॉर्पोरेट गारंटी, आई सस्पेक्ट नहीं मिलेगी। सर एक प्रपोजल और था, ये हमने एसबीपी को सजेस्ट किया है पिछले, इनफैक्ट जो बात कर रहा था, वो जो ग्रुप दैट वाज फॉर्म्ड एंड देन वी हैड अ डिस्कशन लास्ट वीक विद एसबीपी आल्सो। सर इसके अंदर एक और सेगमेंट ये है जो आईटी एक्सपोर्टर है, ठीक है। अच्छा, जो आईटी एक्सपोर्टर है वो हर साल फॉर्म डबल जमा कराता है, ठीक है, जो वो जिसमें अपनी एक्सपोर्ट डिक्लेयर करता है, ठीक है। अच्छा, इसमें एक और पिक्यूलियरिटी ये है कि बहुत सारे एक्सपोर्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स की जो ड्यूरेशन होती है वो 1 साल की होती है, बिकॉज वो रिन्यूएबल 1 साल की टर्म्स होती है, ठीक है। सो एक ये भी मसला है कि अगर आप कहेंगे जी 3 साल का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट दिखाएं, वो होता ही नहीं, ठीक है। मगर अगर फॉर एग्जांपल एक कंपनी है, उसके 3 साल से आपके पास फॉर्म डबली है, वो एसपीपी के पास है, आप वैलिडेट कर लें, 3 साल का डबली फॉर्म है, उसमें वो 3 साल से लेट्स से $2 लाख हर साल एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं ऑन एवरेज, ठीक है। तो हमने जो सजेशन दी थी एसपीपी को पाशा के फोरम से, वो ये दी थी कि चले आप इसके अगेंस्ट 20% के क्या अमाउंट का क्रेडिट दे दें, नॉन कोलैटरलाइज लोन दे दें, क्योंकि 3 साल की आपके पास हिस्ट्री है, एक्सपोर्ट भी कर रहा है, 20% में दे दें, जो मर्जी हेयर कट कर दें, 20% कर दें, 15% कर दें, ठीक है ना। अब उसमें जाहिर है वो गारंटी का कोई एस्पेक्ट नहीं है, बिकॉज वो यूएस कंपनी गारंटी नहीं आपको देगी। मगर अगेन वही बात है ना कि देखें, इट्स बिल्कुल आपने सही कहा कि अगर मेरे पास कोई इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं, सिवाय ये कि मेरे नाम में एक गाड़ी है और आप मुझे उसके अगेंस्ट 50 लाख रुपए की लोन दे दें या 1 करोड़ रुपए की लोन दे दें, तो इट डजंट मेक सेंस फॉर यू। मगर अगर मैं आपको एक्सपोर्ट दिखा सकता हूँ 3 साल की, उस पर चले 20-25%, उस पर 75% का हेयर कट करके मुझे लैंडिंग कर दे, दैट्स मे बी एन ऑप्शन दैट यू मे लाइक टू कंसिडर, and that will help a lot of small exporters also.
I think I'll just add to that. I think आपका point Javed sir valid है, because you are a custodian of public deposits, right? You're using that, so you have a fiduciary responsibility to assess risk and lend. So when my question, the point was that said that yeah, they may not have assets, but they may have cash flows. And a question here is that a lot of companies are product companies, right? So services companies have contracts, and that can give you a cash flows. They may be delayed. The payments may not come, for whatever reasons, because of lockdown or whatever. So in services companies, you may see a stream of cash flows or contracts that can back your assessment of repayment capacity. And the another question that will go towards the regulator is that a lot of companies have IP. For example, I know for a fact that Salman has let's say an education platform that he licenses, and that creates his license streams, right? And you know that hey, it's been renewed for 3 years, it's going to come for the 4th year, and that's a 22% locked in revenue. So they have these cash flow streams that can be evaluated. But would that be considered as a valid collateral that, hey, I own intellectual property of this asset? It may not be a patented product. Let's not go on the patent side, but it is definitely an intellectual property that is being licensed. You can review license contracts, but the central bank needs to probably tell the commercial banker that when you consider it, you can consider it as an acceptable collateral, right? So what is your thought process on that? And also Javed sir, how would you think about it? So Samar sir, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks again, Owais, that you raised very valid point, and I'll talk about this IP because that's very important. But one point you see which Salman mentioned regarding, you see, this proposal of, you see, taking into account the factor of e-form, you see, certain percentage of e-form at least we provide as a credit. Fine, Salman, you see, in the normal course of business, that would have definitely worked, because that is a sort of an assured cash inflows. But now you see, in the backdrop of COVID-19, when the orders have been cancelled, business are not normal, so probably the banks might be, you see, a bit risk averse on that. But Owais, as you mentioned, that as a central bank, we are very open to all sort of suggestions, and I would appreciate, you see, if we get some proposal from the PSHA's platform, the specific proposal for the wages scheme as to how could the IT companies, what facilitation the central bank can provide because you see the facilitation from our side could be in terms of regulatory relaxations, in terms of enablement, and for that we are very, very, very open. So if there's any proposal from your audience, from your companies, from your platform, please do send, and do send that very quickly, because we are running short in time in terms of the wages scheme. Now I'll come to your question, which is on the IP side. That you see, the good part is, and actually things have been happening, you see, while Corona has been very unfortunate, but there has been some good things happening. One of these good things was that in the last week of April, there has been a secure transaction registry now is in place. This is an electronic registry, and that's very important for the IT companies. Why? Because IT companies, typically, they don't have the tangible assets as collateral, but they do have, you see, the receivables are immovable assets. Now, some of these could be receivables, and IP is an eligible collateral under this electronic registry. So a company, an IT company, what they could do is that they can go and have an access to the SCCP side, because this collateral registry, electronic registry is with the SCCP. So they can get that IP as an immovable asset, as a collateral, and get that registered. And this is acceptable to the banks, because I remember probably on 27th or 28th of April, we issued that instructions to all of the banks that that the movable charge created on the movable assets through this electronic registry would be acceptable collateral. So the IT companies can also get benefit of that.
I think this is something really excellent. I think our companies are listening to this, and I think they'll be very encouraged to hear what you just mentioned, that you have already notified that this is. But Javed sir, can you elaborate? Has it trickled down to the product level yet that you will accept IP as collateral?
Yeah, I think it has, and let me also tell you that this is not something, well, under this new registry scheme, these all charges will get registered, which earlier weren't there. But having said that, even earlier, if a banker is convinced that yes, there's a cash flow, or there's an intellectual property, or there's a revenue, so you can always have even an unregistered hypothecation charge on those particular assets which you determine as that. So with this now the new registry coming in play, this is going to support the entire SMEs, which was earlier a challenge, and obviously IT companies, a lot of IT companies will be benefiting out of this as well.
All right. So Salman, can you just share a little bit about once this disbursement is done? I mean, about your credit relationship with the bank. So is it with a local bank, or is it with one of your subsidiaries abroad?
No, it's a local bank. I mean, we have a separate relationship in the US with our bank over there, but, referring to the local bank over here. So the credit relationship that we had was, we had some land that we'd acquired to construct an office building. And essentially, what happened was that the bank did an evaluation. They said they computed the forced sale value at 80% of the value of the land that was valuated by their appointed valuator, and then they kept a 20% margin on top of that. That meant that they gave us basically 64% of the value of the land was what they treated as something that they could collateralize in terms of giving us a facility.
All right. So I know it's not directly related to the wage scheme, but there is a, sometimes some of our companies are doing business abroad and they have relationships. They have an option of borrowing in Pakistan from those relationships, because as the current regulation of State Bank does not allow for a borrowing from abroad for a local company, right? As per Chapter 19, unless that local company has a credit rating of BB minus. So is that something the State Bank can look at, and for the IT sector, of how to facilitate under the PSBA, it's called, right? The private sector borrowing arrangement. So can you shed some light on that, sir?
Yeah, you're right that this subject is not directly related to me, but since I had been with the exchange policy department, you see, for some time in the past, so I do have an information about that. Yes, there is a requirement of that rating, you see, but an exception to that is that if you are an exporter of IT, you see, services, and if your amount that you want to borrow is up to 80% of your export, then you're exempt for this from this particular requirement. But if there is, you see, some proposal from the IT companies, any concrete proposal, so please do send that to us. We are very open to all sort of suggestions, because yeah.
Yeah, please go on. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think the openness is definitely being noted. So a lot of companies are sending questions. I will now just go through a few questions in the meantime. So one of the questions is that on the rate. So you are giving it at 0%, and you have set a cap of, let's say, 4%, right, or 3%, as you mentioned. So but that's a cap. So if a bank and a company has a relationship, there is it's allowed to have a negotiation. Is that possible on the rate?
Yes, actually, this is the maximum. This is the maximum that the bank can charge for their risk. But I have seen the examples where, in terms, and of course, those are the big borrowers, you see, without doubt, where the banks actually, you see, they compromise on their margin, and they even give, you see, at 2%. I would love to see that, you see, reduction in the maximum rate for the small companies and for the IT companies as well. But this is the maximum, yeah.
Great. So, Javed sir, one question is that you mentioned something about that you're doing some webinars for companies to be better equipped to how to apply for a loan. So, is there a program that you can create for IT sector in specific who are reach out to our community?
Thank you, Owais, for raising this point. I think while central bank is also encouraging and sort of mandating all the banks that all these schemes and information must reach out to the customers at almost all levels, and not only the customers, to the general public as well, because SMEs, let's say, very specific segment that I'm talking of, there are only fewer companies which are customers to the banks, and there's a lot more which are not borrowing from any banks. So we thought that while we are writing letters, emails, and the text messages to all the customers where we have those coordinates and the contact details in our portfolio, and we will definitely disseminating to them. But we thought that through our platform of non-financial advisory services, we must reach out to the entire society or the segment of the SMEs. So those particular one, we are doing it. We have already tailored about 4 or 5 different programs. One has already been conducted. The other one is going to come up next week. Till now, I don't have anything very specific on the IT sector, because these are very generic kind of programs which we thought should address the entire SME population. As to, let's say, the basic one is that in this COVID situation, what exactly the steps are required and all those. So there's a set of streams which we have developed with the help of IFC, because we work very closely with IFC. So we have taken what are the best practices happening globally and what is required. So with the help of them, those programs are going on. But I think we would definitely look at that. We will talk to the committee which Salman mentioned that has been formed, and we can develop something along with these IT experts and the needs which they feel they can guide us to, and we will develop one such program for the IT sector as well.
Sorry, Owais, yeah, if you allow me, you see, an intervention just for a minute, because that has a relevance with what Javed has just mentioned. He's referring to an instruction that has been issued by the central banks, you see, just a couple of days back, to all of the banks, which makes it mandatory that the banks should send emails and messages, SMS, to all of their depositors who have a business relationship. So almost all of the IT company would in one or the other way would at least be an account holder of a bank. So I think this is a good platform to tell all companies, you see all audience here, who are the IT companies, that if you don't receive a message, an SMS message from your bank where you have a, you see, account, not the borrowing relationship, just an account relationship, which would tell you that there is a wages scheme here, under which you can apply to the banks to not to lay off your employees. And if the bank does not, you see, respond to you, or if you apply and the bank without any reason rejects your request, then please do make a complaint to us. And I would like to take the benefit of this floor to tell that there is an email address, which is, and you can always note it down. This is COVID-19.stimulus@SBP, State Bank of Pakistan.org.pk. And then there is also a line number 111-727-273. Please, whoever you see, anyone, including all IT companies, if they feel that the banks are not doing justice with them, they're not entertaining at all, then please do lodge that complaint with us. This will create a public pressure on us as a central bank and as well as on the commercial banks to process. And we are very, very, very closely monitoring all of those complaints. So I just wanted to take benefit of this and just wanted to highlight it to the audience.
Okay. So one of the things is that I was going to ask that as part of this employee thing, so most of the workers have, employees have accounts, but are you mandating as part, because, you know, it's under NFIS goals, you also have the idea of bringing more and more people into the formal banking system. Are you mandating that all the payroll loans has to be, the payroll has to be disbursed either through a wallet or a bank account? Is that something State Bank is mandating?
Actually, you see, our instructions say that preferably it should be in the accounts, whether these are the normal accounts. And we also allowed, you see, through our amendment and instructions, we allowed a very simple procedure, which is for the M-wallet accounts. For that, what you need to do is that the employer, and especially this is for those who are on the contract, you see, those daily wage workers, because they normally don't find it easier, you see, to go and open their account. So what the employer can do is that they provide a certificate that these are our employees, these are their NIC's numbers, and these are their mobile numbers details. So the banks would just on the basis of that, and Nadra, you see, where it says they will simply open the account. That's a very simple process. But this is not mandatory, you see, because we believe that still there would be a lot of population which would not have any account at all. So we don't want to deprive them from having this facility. So we allowed that even in those cases, the cash payment can also be done to those employees.
Absolutely. So one thing that, you know, by looking at all the questions, I think a lot of our smaller companies and mid-sized companies are realizing that they need to build a credit history, right? Because I think the organizations that had a credit history would find it much easier to get a, you know, advantage of a scheme like this, because even for Javed Saab as a banker, it's much easier to assess credit risk for somebody who has taken a loan and repaid it, hopefully, in a, you know, without any defaults or any delays in payments, right? So I think you know, the silver lining in the whole thing is that realization of building a credit relationship is now coming to fore for our companies. I think what we as an industry need to learn is how to make that step happen. So maybe, you know, like for Javed Saab, maybe it will be good to design products, and maybe for, since we discussed that with you, to if you can look at it as a standalone sector with its unique peculiarities, is maybe some onboarding programs, right? So I'm, for a smaller companies, I may not have the money or the collateral to have a 5 million rupee loan, but I can start with maybe 500,000 or 1 million rupee. Because if you're running a company of any substantial size, you probably have assets to back maybe 1 million rupees worth of collateral, right? So we start off that, build a credit relationship, and upscale it, the old school banking style, right? So that's something that I would flag on behalf of the industry, maybe a push towards from the regulator of having these easy credit schemes, because you work at the policy level, that's your department. Maybe maybe some kind of credit guarantees or comforts from the central bank, or maybe sometimes not a carrot, a stick, that you have to, like, up to 500,000 clean lending just to try it out, give it to people. It will free up a lot the hands of bankers like Javed Saab, maybe to look at it. Javed Saab, does that make sense to you from a banking angle?
Owais, perfectly. I think you have said it all. That is what is required. And if you look at the globally, people are worried about their credit scores and everything. Unfortunately, we are not here. But the time has come that now we also need to move into that direction. And we would definitely, with all those suggestions, we always at the forefront of developing something new, and we risk about an X amount with the pilot and stuff like that. We have learned that way. And I think now over the years, that capacity has actually improved overall. So we'll be able to do it at a much quicker pace now. Specifically this.
Yeah. So yeah, I think those are very exciting things, and I am privy. I wouldn't share it because I was part of the judging panel there, so I wouldn't share anything. But I think it'll be something very exciting coming from your side. Samar, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would definitely like to have that. You see, the reason is that, as you mentioned, that financial inclusion, which is basically an access to finance, especially for the small enterprises, is one of our key priorities. We have actually got the targets. We have committed the numbers, both in terms of opening of accounts, in terms of the having an access to the credit for small entities. So we have got those numbers in place for small enterprises, for agriculture, for low-cost housing. So that is our priority as well. But you see, just for the sake of making it clear to the audience as well, there's another facility which is under, you see, this Kamyab Jawan program, which has been, you see, launched by the Prime Minister, you see, office. Under that, for the smaller loans, there are 50% first loss risk coverage is also available. So the small entities where, as you mentioned, that probably the loan requirement will be something like 500,000 or 1 million or even less than that, they can also avail, you see, that facility from that side.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. I think that's a very good vehicle that can be promoted, especially just for the purpose of building a credit history, something that the bankers can latch on. Salman, I think, I would really like to have your parting thoughts, because if we're just almost done with 90 minutes, so we'll start the wrap up. So Salman, please go ahead.
I think the key thing perhaps for the audience is that this 5 million clean lending facility, perhaps is the vehicle that a lot of people, if they haven't exercised it, they should do it immediately, because collateral free hai, koi issue nahi hai. So hopefully everybody should be able to get some portion of that 5 million. The rest of it, I think, I very much appreciate both SBP and Bank Alfalah, very forward thinking, and the openness to ideas and propositions and proposals is very, very encouraging. And even more encouraging is the fact that आपके पास एक email address है जो आप monitor कर रहे हैं शिकायत के लिए. ये तो बहुत पाकिस्तान में एक unique सा situation है, तो very much appreciated all around.
Thank you, Salman. Mahir, your parting comments, final thoughts?
Similar views. Very impressed with what the State Bank has done during this time frame, being proactive, and very much appreciate the fact that very open discussion and flow of ideas is taking place. I hope the audience benefits from this, and completely agree with Salman Sahab. I also am encouraging everyone else to try out the 5 million. I think there's a hesitation generally in the industry towards going with the banks, because I also do have this similar experience that it's not easy to get credit or get financing from the bank if you don't have collateral. Not a lot of banks are open to other ways of lending, either through receivables or anything. So I think this is a very good opportunity, and definitely everyone should avail and build a relationship with their banks. So I think hats off to SBP for launching this and building confidence in the financial sector and the financial institutions. So very good
Thank you.
panel. Yeah,
Thank
thank you for having me.
Javed sir, please, your final thoughts on the discussion and any message to the community.
I think I'll just reinforce the email and the phone number Samar has shared from the SBP part. I think almost every bank has a similar kind of emails and the helplines. At Bank Alfalah, we have an SME help desk at Bank Alfalah. We have an SME COVID-19 at Bank Alfalah, where all such complaints can be logged in, and these are directly monitored in my office. And similarly, all the complaints which are reaching to the central bank, rest assured that these do come back to us by the day end, whoever the bank it is. So I will also encourage the audience to please avail these opportunities, and in case there's anything happening, while we have central bank has a very clear instructions to all the commercial banks to disseminate all kind of policies, information, educate the field staff, which are the RMs at the branches. And I think I can pretty much tell you on behalf of the banking industry that yes, everybody has, while in all these difficult times, we are conducting similar online sessions with our people, not only writing them, but also through these webinars and all those things, educating the relationship managers at the field and making them aware. But still, if there's any gap, please do reach us at our respective banks' helplines or central banks' helplines.
Thank you, Javed sir. Samar sir, final thoughts from your side.
I've got three messages, you see. The first message is for the general public, which are the audience. Please do keep a pressure. Do keep a public pressure on the banks as well as on us as well. And do give us feedback. If you apply, if you're not, you see, being entertained, please do let us know, you see. We'll take care of that. That particular email address, I myself, you see, personally taking care of that. I do check that on the daily basis. So that was a message for the general public. The second message is for the banks. Javed sir, you're here. So the message is very clear. We have provided 60% risk coverage. We have allowed you clean lending. We have allowed corporate guarantees as collateral acceptable. We have allowed, you see, STR to create charge and allow that as an acceptable. For the small entities, even 100% of your loan will be covered in your portfolio, because we never have had more than 40% portfolio risk. So please do come out of the comfort zones and look at this particular sector. The last message is for the PASHA. Please keep on having these awareness programs. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. I would really like to thank all the panelists for being so candid and front. I think it's a great opportunity for IT industry. We have, as an industry, have been credit deprived, and we have complained a lot. But I think with the kind of leadership we are seeing in the country and at the central bank, and the kind of responsiveness we are seeing to our suggestions, queries, concerns, and complaints, I think it's high time that the industry makes a bit of an effort. We fight it, and like Samar Saab said, we keep the pressure on the banks and central bank that we start building credit stream. We may need 5 million, but if it comes as a 500K loan, we still take it, just to build that comfort with the bank. If Mahir and Salman can claim that they're getting loans today, is because they have built that relationship over the past decade or so. So let's get started. Whether you're a small company, whether you're a one-person company, take Kamyab Jawan. If you're a small company, take $1 million rupee loan. Let's just get started. And hopefully as a sector, we'll come out of this stronger and will contribute more towards our nation building and our financial health. I would like to thank all the audience for all the questions, for all the participants for being so open-minded and helpful and liberal at this slightly ungodly hour. And thank you once again. We're signing off, and but the Pasha itself is open. All your CC members send you concerns, complaints, suggestions, and they will be in touch with the bankers and the central bank to drive the point home. Thanks a lot. Good night, and Shabba Khair.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, Owais. Thank you, everyone.
Ji, thank you. Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.